Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on rural electrification transportation programs. I'm so excited about this topic today, and I can't wait to hear from our speakers this morning. Again, my name is Simbiat Yusuf. I am Member Relations Manager here at Fourth, and I will be joining you all as the moderator today. And before we start, just some announcements, and we will get directly to the program. Attendees, we ask that you please be sure to submit all your questions via the attendee chat. We will be sharing the webinar recording as well as the PowerPoint presentations from our speakers after the webinar today. And as we always do, we have a little intro about Fourth, who we are and what we do. Fourth, we are a nonprofit trade association advocating for smart transportation through our work in four main focus areas, which are consumer engagement, industry development, policy advocacy, and demonstration projects. Through all of this, we are working to advocate and advance clean and equitable transportation for all. We are based in Portland, Oregon, but our work takes us nationally and internationally. And we want to say thank you today to our sponsor. This webinar is sponsored by Idaho Power, but our webinars and our work cannot be done without the support of our members and sponsors. So we like to take a few seconds to thank them. Obviously, these are not all of the members or supporters of Fourth, but we want to just use this opportunity to thank everyone. And if you would like to hear more information about the Fourth membership program or sponsorship for webinars and events, you can please feel free to reach out to myself, Simbiat Yusuf. My email is on the screen, and I'm able and available to answer any questions you might have. The Roadmap program is now live. You can now view the program on our website by visiting us at roadmapfourth.org. Our curated program will be centering conversations around charging, impact, cutting edge, and vehicles. You'll note that the vehicles is different from cars because we are covering all topics under vehicles. When we talk about electric vehicles, we talk about micromobility to the very top of the heavy-duty side of vehicles. And it is not too late to reserve your spot, so please feel free to register as soon as possible. If you would like more information about Roadmap, the program, sponsorship opportunities, you can find that information on the website, roadmapfourth.org, or for sponsorship inquiries, please feel free to reach out to Ashley Duplanty, our International Marketing Manager. Email is on the screen as well. Our speakers today are David Soens, Vice President of Grant Operations at Blink Charging, who comes to Blink with over a decade of experience in the electric vehicle infrastructure business. We also have Rob Currier, Energy Service Coordinator at Emerald People's Utility District. Rob operates programs promoting energy efficiency, renewable energy, and electric vehicles, and work with key accounts. And finally, we'll hear from Erin Galiger, Program Manager at Fourth, who leads pilot program and is a charging infrastructure subject matter expert. Before we start the presentation today, we have a fun question for our speakers to get us started, as well as we want our attendees to participate in this as well. So if I can have our speakers, panelists, to please turn on your webcam, and I will go for the question. Our intro question today, since we're discussing rural electrification programs, and summer is right around the corner. So let's say you are on your summer road trip, your annual summer road trip, and we hope hopefully this year it will be in an EV. What would be your favorite small rural town that you go visit? And if you can tell us some information, and I can start first, then you can get some ideas brewing. Mine would be Wallace, Idaho, going on hikes. That would be a destination stop, whether it's for the flea markets there. And for a fun fact, the movie Dante's Peak was filmed in Wallace, Idaho. And I will have Erin, can you let us know your small town, please?
Yeah. My favorite spot is Dateland, Arizona. It's smack dab between Phoenix and San Diego. It's the perfect stop. You can buy a date palm tree. You can buy a date shake. And there's a ton of merch related to both dates as the plant, but also being in Dateland. It's a really fun stop.
Thank you, Erin. Rob?
I love date shakes. Mine would probably be Crestwell, Oregon. It's just south of Eugene, and it often is the kind of our first stop that we make on the way out of town to go kind of on our adventures out in the Central Cascades, where you can get baked goods, delicious coffee, and breads, breakfast burritos. It's a favorite stop of ours. It's delicious, right off I-5 in Crestwell, Oregon.
Amazing. Getting my list ready. David?
A lot of exciting places for me to visit, but my choice would be Buxton, North Carolina. It's the furthest East Coast point and on the continental U.S. where the big lighthouse is there, and you can go fishing, surfing, and enjoy family time on the beach.
Thank you all. We got someone saying family from Crestwell. If you have any any of your cities, please let us know, and I'll make sure I keep a list for myself as I do summer road trips. And with that, I want to say we'll get the presentation started. We have a fun panel for you all. We don't have any poll questions. And our first speaker today is David. David, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you very much for the introduction. Dave Soens from Blink Charging. I've been in the industry for a little over a decade now, and started out in Center City, Philadelphia, with a company that was purchased by Blink U.S. stations, and we were acquired for our expertise in fast charging and level 2, and also a vast amount of experience with the evolving technology of the industry. Blink's overview is also a early starter in the industry, starting in 2009. The company's expanded with over 5,600 commercial EV charging stations in 40 states. We have over 8,900 residential charging stations deployed, and we have access to a growing registered membership base of 180,000, going over actually 190,000 of new members, and it's growing every day. We're an international company, and we're operating in the Dominican, in South America, Central America, and also in Greece and in Israel as well. So we continue to grow and expand during these exciting times of EV adoption and infrastructure growth. Here to talk about today is the rural needs for EV infrastructure, and also like to differentiate it from the urban communities. And we can discuss a little bit about what the strategy should be. Each little rural community is going to be unique in its own way. Some of them have thoroughfares nearby where fast charging would be necessary, is complementing the level 2s that are going to be necessary as well. So what our goals are is to encourage more investment from states and municipalities, and from the federal government in some cases, and also from utilities, to expand the opportunity for rural communities to have the infrastructure deployed. With those larger investments made, it gives companies like Blink the guidance and the opportunity to make those commitments to grow the small towns with the infrastructure. We see the cities doing very well with getting adoption. It's going to take a little longer to get more broad adoption-based growth in EVs with rural communities. And so one of those hurdles is obviously getting the infrastructure in place to support them. Um, a homeowner in a rural community might be able to get the charging infrastructure in their garage or their house or their carport and get around the community. But what about traveling? What about getting somewhere they need to go in the state or even interstate? We need to have those bridges expanded for them with the infrastructure. So we're very committed to seeing it happening, and we are wanting to grow public awareness with that as well. So there's a lot of new cars coming out. You have Volkswagen bringing the ID4 into the country, and it's starting to show up. I saw one last week, so that was a big sign of traditional OEMs, developing their commitment strategy to the EVs and getting them out there. Chevrolet has a good push with the Bolt and with the Hummer now, and with future products across their portfolio, as well as Ford and the German automotive groups have done very well as well, and the Koreans. So we're seeing a lot of activity in that world. I love the idea that the pickup truck race has begun. The Rivians, the Tesla Cybertruck, the Ford F-150s are going to really resonate well, I believe, with rural communities. A lot of rural areas have a large amount of pickup truck drivers that I believe are going to be willing to put their toe in the water and try it once they drive the EVs and see how good they're going to be as far as a less of a maintenance product, an adequate amount of range, and quite a large battery pack as well. So you're gonna see a lot of that. Let's give it a try. There's a very good product to consider now. So we want to help that with the bigger batteries in the trucks and the cars with further range. There's now more than ever. There's a very important. It's a necessity to have the infrastructure developed to support the entire state, not only just the urban areas, but the small rural communities as well, for the people traveling through, getting around, and also getting to the people that visit these smaller communities as well. I don't really want to talk a lot about the urban needs because we're on the rural points, and it is different because there's obviously more infrastructure available in cities. There's workplace charging. There's more parking lots showing up with those opportunities as well. So drivers are more and more getting access to charging infrastructure, and that there's a need there too to continue to grow, to handle the amount of growth that's happening, so it can stay consistent with the adoption rate. I want to move to the next slide. Okay. So I covered some of these points earlier, but I want to talk about more of the bullets directly. So eliminating range gaps, from major corridors is obviously a big deal. We can't have somebody that's got a 30% state of charge driving along an interstate or a major corridor and not having enough range to get to a active charging station where they can repower their car. So that is a very big first step for us to go from there. The next step, utility and government investment in the form of grants and rebates for the charging infrastructure. The utility side would be make-ready opportunities. Some utilities are very encouraging for the new business case, and they have a make-ready program in some cases available, which would help cover the cost of the transformer upgrades and some of the costs that the utility would have with bringing power to where the chargers can go. That helps bridge some of the gaps as well, on the economic front to make this a reality. Less EV charging station density is the need for, creates a need for fast charging along highways. So not level 2 is going to be great in a lot of cases, and it'll do a lot, but it cannot charge your car fast enough for when somebody's on the road. So we are doing a tremendous amount of work in the fast charging front right now, developing Evsc fast charging infrastructure. We're working in Vermont on a grant we were awarded there to complete the corridors with fast charging. We have 175 kilowatts chargers. We have 50 kilowatt chargers, and in some cases we have in between those two charging platforms for power at 100 kilowatts, and we're developing that in all of the New England area and across the continental U.S. as well. Enabling rural tourism is dependent on for states and communities to want to continue to be accessible for EV drivers is going to be an important state of development that we want to continue offering. Destination charging is what I mean by that. So there's drivers that are going to want to drive their EV and not have to rely on the current petroleum infrastructure that's out there. They want to really embrace the EV adoption and stay fully committed to being able to use their car for 100% of the time. So that means we have to have some destination objectives. So special places around our country that we want to visit and enjoy on vacations will have charging infrastructure available and allow for people to do 100% of their driving on the EV platforms. So forecasting future utility vehicles, we touched on that a little bit. We have, a large amount of vehicles coming out from pretty much every OEM in the country or the world making EVs or getting ready to embrace it. So we will see a lot of that, and we'd love to see more. So let me see if there's anything else I'm missing here. I touched on Vermont, and I know it's time for me to wrap up. So if there's further questions later, I'll be happy to take it on the Q&A.
Thank you so much, David, for speaking on the charging needs of rural communities. And now we will definitely be able to take some questions at the end. But before that, I will pass it along to our second speaker. Our second speaker is Rob Currier from the Emerald People's Utility District. Thank you.
Hey, Rob, I think you're muted.
Classic. So thank you, DeForth, for having us here, inviting us to be a part of this. Just wanted to talk a little bit about our motivation to make investments in electric vehicles, a couple of projects that we did last year, and kind of focus on one in particular that we've got going on. So just quickly, EPUD is kind of a rural utility. Here's our rural bona fides. We serve kind of 550 square miles in a donut around the Eugene Springfield metro area. We're along the I-5 corridor, so we kind of benefit from a lot of attention that the I-5 corridor gets for EV work. But we're a very rural utility. We're very kind of Western Oregon rural utility, fairly small, about 56 average megawatts, winter peaking utility, definitely skewed towards residential, but we're kind of a growing commercial utility. So kind of laying the justification for why we're making these investments, our board kind of started in 2015 with some strategic planning. We kind of updated that last year, and we really wanted to focus on, there's two aspects of the strategic plan that really impacts electric vehicle investments. One is load factor improvement. Being a rural utility spread out over 550 square miles, we've got a lot of infrastructure out there. And so we're looking for ways to improve our load factor as a utility to kind of better utilize that infrastructure. It helps put kind of downward pressure on rates overall and for all of our customers. So if we've got one customer that's getting a benefit of an EV rebate or charging at infrastructure installed by Emerald, they may be benefiting, but it's our hope that it's kind of benefiting all of our customers through kind of load factor improvement. And with that, it's kind of on us to make sure that we're charging at the right, making sure customers are getting the right signals to charge at the right time. We've also we place a huge emphasis on kind of meeting customers where they are and kind of providing excellent service in that respect. And EVs, there's a lot of demand for it, even in our service territory. And so we want to make sure that we're there with programs to help support them. Our board adopted kind of again, in between those two strategic plans, our board adopted an EV investment plan. Kind of goal to kind of increase the number of clean fuels credits in Oregon. We want to invest fairly across all of our customer classes. We want to limit investments really from those clean fuels credits at the beginning here. And so we developed a list of actions that we took last year, including home charging incentives, community EV grants, and some EV marketing and registrations. I want to quickly run through those. We do level 2 charging incentives, and we give a customer $100 to register their vehicle with us. That's an action that we took last year, and we're getting some pretty good activity with that. Last year, we also gave away, these projects are being built now. We gave away 4 community grants for our customers to build level 2 charging infrastructure out there. Some of it will be kind of serving workplace functions, but one we're really excited about is kind of serving a pretty big parking infrastructure for Mount Pisgah, which is kind of a popular hiking trail that's just outside of Eugene and our service territory. So everybody from Eugene kind of comes out to this area to hike, and we'll have charging infrastructure there now to support electric vehicle drivers that come out. We also partnered with Fourth and Eugene Water and Electric Board last year on some dealer engagement programs. We tried that out, and we're kind of looking forward to maybe more opportunities there in the future. So last year we had a bonus action come about. There was an opportunity for us to apply for funding with the Bonneville Environmental Foundation. Fourth helped us out with this too, to kind of help increase access to rural charging and kind of focus on workplace applications. So this is a small map. Hopefully you can see it a little bit, but showing kind of the purple dots are high schools in our service territory. And there's not a lot of charging out there. This comes from PlugShare, I believe. And we can, so it's our hope that we wanted to put in some charging infrastructure to kind of help support teachers that may be commuting to these schools, people in the community that use these schools as kind of community events, whether it's in the gyms or at the football fields. These are kind of hubs for these communities, and so we want some charging infrastructure to serve those, and maybe even for students. It wasn't an immediate goal of ours to provide charging for students, but every school has asked about that, and so I think that's pretty interesting. So we want to be able to increase the adoption of electric vehicles, and we think I think one really good way to do that is showing people that workplace charging is available. We can help fill those afternoon gaps and meet our strategic goals there. We're going to be working with Fourth to provide outreach to these schools, doing some EV 101 type stuff, charging 101 type stuff, maybe even develop a little bit of curriculum for teachers to use in their classrooms. This also helps generate a revenue stream for clean fuels credits because any of the charging that happens at these stations will be able to generate credits from those, which is a kind of a big deal for our board of directors. So just kind of quickly running through the funding sources, BEF awarded us a zero emissions vehicle infrastructure grant. We're using that plus funds from their clean fuels program. And we're also developing a new rate schedule for access to these charging stations. We want it to be, board has yet to approve this, but we've kind of talked to them a little bit about it. We want it to be simple, easy to use, super duper affordable. We want this to be affordable to everybody. If you're an EPUD customer, we're going to be offering a subscription plan. If you're not an EPUD customer, it'll be a kind of an on-the-go sort of thing. But we want it to be extremely affordable. There's really no reason why we need to kind of charge more than we need to. With it's all going to be cost-based, and with clean fuels providing a lot of the revenue for these stations, it makes a lot of sense to keep it cheap. So kind of where we're at with these, we've selected our EVSE vendor. The sites have all been selected at the 4 schools. We've engaged with installers and other contractors. This rate schedule has been developed. We've developed plans for each of the sites. We had our permits still are kind of pending though for a lot of our sites. So the county was kind of in the unfortunate position to kind of have and be pretty severely impacted by wildfire last summer, at the end of last summer, and it's really impacted kind of everybody and created some pretty extensive timelines for getting plans approved. But we're looking forward to kind of moving that all forward and then moving towards kind of engaging with our schools on that outreach plan that I mentioned. And again, the hope is that we'll be able to kind of get out there and provide charging station, rural charging infrastructure for a number of different sites across our service territory. We'll see how this goes. I think hopefully we'll be able to kind of increase electric vehicle adoption at these schools. It definitely happened at Emerald. We put in kind of workplace charging at our utility about 3 years ago now, and we had kind of one person driving electric at that time. And since then, we've grown to about 10% of our workforce drives electric, and a big reason why is we think is that they're able to plug in when they come to work, and so we think hopefully it'll be a big motivator for others that are commuting out to these school districts to consider an electric vehicle, and we'll be here to support them. I think that's all I had, but look forward to addressing any questions eventually.
Thank you so much, Rob. Great listening and you discussing the rural school charging program and how maybe this could be tied into students charging vehicles as well. And finally, before we get to Q&A, we'll hear from my colleague, Erin. So very excited to hear about the eCharger program. So, Erin.
Yeah, thanks so much. My name's Erin Galiger. I'm a program manager here at Fourth. Fourth has a bunch of different programs talking about rural electrification in transportation. I'll be focusing specifically on our electric tractor program. I believe this is our first time actually speaking really publicly about it, so I'm happy to share how the program has come together, where we're at. I will not be sharing results today because we are pretty early in, but excited to share how far we actually have come. So I'll first start with why electric tractors. Electric tractors should have a really interesting use case. They get used very frequently. They're often stored in the same place every evening, typically going to have access to power from those welding outlets that are existing. So there's a bit of predictability, and you're never too far from that charging station. So kind of an interesting use case there. We're predicting fuel and maintenance savings, and we also will be measuring that due to the low amount of moving parts, and also just being able to eventually remove having to have all that fuel storage on site could be really interesting as that scales. Electric tractors only use energy while moving. So there's a lot of operations where there is a lot of idling or moving a little bit during a harvest. So electric tractors can really conserve quite a bit of energy while doing that. We're also predicting quite a bit of health impacts for farm workers due to no tailpipe emissions. The also interesting anecdotal data point I caught last week was that because it's so quiet, a lot of farm workers are actually able to speak to each other while they're working around the tractor now, instead of it being so loud that you're really just working and not being able to develop that community. And that also speaks to the quiet operations. The electric tractor market today is pretty nascent. We are still hearing a lot of headlines from John Deere, Kubota, Fendt. Those are like the really big ones. And if you are at all involved in agriculture, you might hear about some brand loyalty around those tractor companies. We're working with Monarch and Selectrac. Those are two startups that are based out of California that are just starting to have commercially available electric tractors. A lot of the tractors that are commercially available right now are that 25 to 40 horsepower, so pretty small electric tractors. And that's what I'm really excited to share where we're at. We currently have 3 purchased, and they'll be rotating around Oregon. Our program partners have really been able to help us bring this program together. We are working with Sustainable Northwest, Y-East RC&D, and Bonneville Environmental Foundation. We all come together and bring a different perspective, but we're hoping to bring both the electric transportation subject matter expertise, the perspective of a farmer, the rural expertise and network, as well as just trying to ground our work in the needs of the rural communities. We're trying to develop a program that really makes it easy for producers to try out this technology at really no risk to them, and then to be able to capture those learnings. So some of the things on our program approach, and I'm going to go through all of these in my little flower diagram. Starting at the top, we're really trying to limit the risk to participating producers. As I said, we're rotating 3 different tractors. It's no cost to the producers to participate. We're trying to take all the measurements ourselves and provide that technical assistance so that they're not trying to or having to compromise or even have any type of risk as they're trying out this technology. If it doesn't work for them in their use case, they still have their other tractors on site. We're trying to test various use cases. We're going to be moving the tractors to test out at different types of crops, using different types of implements. And we're also trying to test out different size tractors to learn and to identify what are the best use cases for electrification. We're still really early in the market, and we're not really at the point where electric tractors are the silver bullet, they work for everyone. We're really trying to test that out and then share our learnings with what we end up finding out. We're trying to also quantify the benefits of electric tractors. So we've installed SCADA systems on each of the tractors so that we're really capturing all of that data. We're identifying how long the tractors can have their day out on the field, how much energy they're consuming for the different types of operations, and also testing out like what the type of environmental environments are. So the temperature, ambient temperature, and where they're located in the state. We're going to be growing awareness and demand for electric tractors by hosting public events and making sure the tractors are used by as many folks as possible. Butts and seats. You've heard it for electric vehicles. I think it also goes for electric tractors. And through all of this, we're hoping to identify what are some policies to reduce barriers. Obviously, upfront cost is going to be a big barrier. Upfront cost is about 50% more for the base tractor as far as what's out there commercially available right now. But there might be others that evolve over time as we learn and as we have more producers who test this technology out. It might be an infrastructure barrier or something else. We're trying to stay a little bit open on that side to as we learn what those policies are. We're doing a lot of knowledge transfer and dissemination. We'll be working with agricultural journalists and hosting public events at county fairs and really trying to get the word out and being agnostic to what type of electric tractor. We're not trying to be honed in on just one manufacturer, but just share our knowledge about electric agricultural equipment and as it's evolving. We are talking about this as an electric tractor program, but we also want to assess other agricultural equipment that can be electric. We're going to be looking at 4x4s and other types of equipment and really thinking through what is the perfect piece of equipment that is at the crux of both an economic decision and an environmental decision, and how can that really scale across the state, but also across the nation. And then lastly, we're really hoping to identify workforce development opportunities as we bring in this new technology. And that might look like folks who can do maintenance on these electric tractors, since there isn't a huge network of maintenance providers so far, or it might be infrastructure development, things of that nature. Again, we're staying pretty open-minded. We're early in the program, but these are some of the main components of our program approach. We delivered our first electric tractor to Rusted Gate Farm just in March, so we are, again, really early. I'm very excited about this partnership. Rusted Gate Farm is really an innovative experimental farm where they're testing out different equipment, but also different crops, and their goal is to try to increase the average farm income and really ensure long-term financial security for small farms, especially in the Rogue Valley, Southern Oregon area. I included some of the comments that I heard while I was there. I love these. Wheels are louder than the tractor. No diesel fumes. This is ludicrous mode. Those are some fun ones that I heard. And really, it was just such a joyous event. And it goes back to that butts and seats. Once people really get to try the equipment out, they can make an assessment of, is this going to work for them? And I'll actually pass it back to Stimby, who's going to have a little bit of a video to show that first impression. And happy to get back into some questions. I don't know. I didn't see the video work on my side, so I just heard my laugh, unfortunately.
Let's do that again.
Okay.
Let's see.
Love it.
Were you able to see the video?
I did not, but maybe we can send that in the follow-up.
Yes, we will definitely share the video in the follow-ups. Apologies for that technical difficulty.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you so much for your presentation, Erin. Love hearing the development in the e-tractor program, and want to see more of what the future holds with this program and all the different types of agricultural equipment we can electrify. And now we're getting into the Q&A portion of our webinar today. If all of my panelists can please turn on your webcam and unmute your mics, and we can start the Q&A. Thank you all. And I want to start the discussion off with a general question. We have a utility representative, we have charging infrastructure representative, and we have a programmatic representative on this panel. So I wanted to open up with, what are we missing? What are we missing in this conversation to further develop the ecosystem of electrifying rural communities? I know we've had questions about electrifying bus. So what is missing from this panel that could provide a more dynamic conversation around electrifying and meeting the needs of rural communities? And I will have, Erin, do you want to take this first? And then we'll go with Rob and David.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So I think what's missing from this conversation is really that local community representation. And I think David was the one who said, it's not going to look the same in every community as we try to electrify transportation. Sometimes it's going to be, trucks or sedans, and other times it's going to be agricultural equipment or might be fleets. So I think bringing in the local community, and that might be representation through a mayor or through conservation districts, but really trying to understand what are the needs, how does transportation meet those needs, and what are the currently commercially available solutions, and trying to bring that all together and speaking about it in a really pragmatic way of, this can actually bring economic opportunity to your community, whether it be from more tourists coming in because there's EV infrastructure, or because the actual cost of operating this equipment is cheaper. So trying to understand what those needs are from the communities and developing solutions that are really hyper local.
Thank you, Erin. Rob?
Yeah, one of the things that I think I would recommend for kind of other utilities that are looking for kind of developing rural infrastructure is to start to engage with jurisdictions. So whether that's a county or a city that are responsible for kind of permitting, to get them ready and to start thinking about things like ADA compliance. That was a huge question for us. Is like making sure everything's up on the up and up at these public charging stations, and making sure the building and electrical inspectors are kind of up on everything that may be required for these types of installs, which may be totally new for kind of these rural jurisdictions. So I think that would be something I would say that would have helped our process a little bit more, is to have some early engagement there.
Thank you. David, do you have anything to add?
Thank you. In speaking in furtherance of some of those details that Erin mentioned, one of my favorite things is attending the town hall meetings where you have community feedback in real time, and helping the community get educated during those opportunities is something I really enjoy doing, because sometimes there's challenging questions that come up where we have to do some problem solving in certain parking solution scenarios, or even geographical, like geography issues that come up, and then also I guess you could say you have the regulatory issues and hurdles that you also have to address. So in each little community, with those combinations coming together, and then with community input on top of all that, is sort of makes it fun and enjoyable. And I like working on those solutions and getting problems solved with regards to the fast charging and the level 2. And then one little thing I wanted to add to that is, I think there should be some, manufacturer engagement with communities as well. So, they can tell people, like, these are what products are in our pipeline that is coming out, and you should give it a try. There should be more of that, test drives and those events that, forth, I know, encourages, so people get out and see what options are going to be out there and available for people to consider.
I wonder if for the e-tractor test drive would be considered e-tractor racing, if that would be part of the test drive. Fourth in the consumer engagement team, just an idea
That
there.
sounded fast in that video.
Yeah. I have a question regarding destination charging, and I think David and Rob, you could take this one. When it comes to pricing and having chargers at destination, whether it's for a hike, sometimes you're going on an 8-mile loop. That definitely will require some time. How do you navigate pricing and congestion charging so someone isn't there for the entire day while other people might need charging?
Well, I can take a crack at that, and two ways that we would address that is, redundancy is one factor. So, two is one and one is zero. So, if we have more than one or two charging stations on site for destination charging, it will one eliminate some of the congestion and queuing that can occur on certain sites, and sometimes you might not have a lot of room to add infrastructure. There could be some barriers that would come up from the utility side as far as what power is available, and Rob can touch on that. Um, but those challenges can be met with redundancy and adding more spaces, and then future proofing for more locations. As adoption goes up, you can have more charging stations and parking spaces allocated for future charging, adoption and growth into the infrastructure on site. So the other answer to the question is we don't like to impose those kinds of penalties for people that block a charger for too long, but we have the resources to do so with our network, where we could add a small fee for overstaying your time and put some time lots or time blocks on how long you can block a site for. If you're charging your car, there could be limits on that. So we really don't want to do that. But if it becomes a problem, it's something that we can implement, as a small penalty for overstaying your time.
Thank you, David. Rob, do you have anything to add on this?
Not too much. I would say I like the idea of building more. We're kind of taking that approach with our school charging program, or trying to build out more capacity that we need at the beginning. And hopefully we'll be able to grow into those. And the kind of destination charging that's happening through a grant of ours, those will be owned and kind of operated by Lane County, and so they'll be setting kind of pricing and kind of rules around kind of charging there. So I think most of the charging vendors have, like David was saying, have capabilities to kind of manage overstaying through fees or other kind of software tweaks. And so hopefully they'll be able to put something in place there, because they're only going to, so far they're only going to have two there, and pretty much every time I'm up there, there's at least two electric vehicles. So a lot of usage, but yeah, competition might be fierce.
Thank you. I know I said this was for David and Rob, but Erin, do you have anything else to add? Okay, perfect. Because we have a lot of questions coming your way. We have a lot of questions regarding the e-tractor. Could you provide more details on charging, for instance, what are the strategies for charging a e-tractor if it runs out of charge in the middle of the field, maybe operational qualities in colder climates as well?
Yeah, these are all questions that we're hoping to answer through our demonstration program. Some of the things I can share right now is that the tractors that we currently have don't have the J1772 charging outlet. If you know me from my previous life at ABB, I'm all about interoperability and using those charging standards. So I'll be pushing for that in the future. So they all charge through conventional welding outlets or an RV outlet. So it's pretty easy, because that's really easy to find on a farm and at a barn. The tractors that we're looking at also have a second battery pack that you can pick up and use for the morning, and then drop it back off at the barn where it can charge, and then you have your battery pack that's on the tractor. So we're going to be doing some testing to see if that extra battery pack is a necessity for all charging operations, because obviously it does add some significant cost to the upfront cost of the tractor. But these are some things that we're going to be investigating. I will also share that Monarch is another tractor startup, electric tractor startup, and they'll be using a J1772 charging outlet. But we think level 2 charging is going to be totally sufficient with those 240-volt outlets.
Thank you. I think there was a question in there also about, is there a list somewhere of electric tractors to look at? And also, will the e-tractor program come outside of Crook County? I know there's a question that there's a farm in Lane County and we would love to try out an e-tractor here.
Yeah, love it. So our program right now is focused on Oregon, both in Southern Oregon and in Crook County. We do expect to be doing some extension to other areas, also pretty locally. So like Washington, Idaho is where we'll plan to expand to first. But we do have a lot of interest in building out, national strategies, and definitely sharing our knowledge and sharing our lessons with other organizations and with other areas that were not physically located.
Thank you. Rob, we have a question coming in regarding the chargers at school. Are there any concerns with having a charger on school campus, such as extra traffic, additional folks at the school around students? And also, how would you encourage EV 101 education within the school system as well to navigate adoption?
Yeah, there has been a little bit of concern, kind of depending on the school district that we've been working with. Actually, most of them have been totally fine. Again, these are community hubs. People are coming and going constantly, and so it's not super new for most of them. But we do have one school that where we're going to be putting the charging stations. They're going to be for faculty and staff, and so we'll definitely, we're just trying to be flexible. I mean, we want to be good partners with this. They are hosting these charging stations, so we're definitely going to be working with them to kind of help meet whatever kind of security needs, privacy needs that they have. And yeah, in terms of the outreach, I'm excited about that aspect. I'm looking forward to getting to that point. And Fourth is really, really good at this stuff, and doing that type of education and outreach. And we're going to be leveraging some of that work to put on some little short webinars. We've talked to about doing meetings at the beginning of the school year, and everything's kind of on the table right now. But we really want to reach the faculty and staff first. Find those one or two champions at the beginning that can really spread the word. Like, this is how much it costs me to drive electric, and I'm saving $100 a month on gas, things like that.
Thank you. David, we have a question here. Do you see destination charging as being mostly level 2 or even level 1 or DC fast charging?
I see it as level 2 and also DC fast charging. Having done installs for both scenarios, I find that the consumers that are driving and charging, as battery packs get bigger, it's going to take longer to get more state of charge on your cars with a level 2, much longer. And if you're going to go into beyond the smaller Nissan Leaf size, Chevy Bolt size, and into the pickup sizes where you can have an excessive amount of weight that's being moved with not fantastic aerodynamic resistance, ratios. So with that being said, you're gonna need some sort of fast charging for that kind of scenario. And the reason I say it is, like, it's just simple math. If you have a 200 kilowatt battery pack on a Hummer that, or even a comparable vehicle that comes out that is going to need to be charged. Even a 50 kilowatt charger is going to take a decent amount of time to provide adequate power for that car to get where it needs to go. So I see the answer. The answer is a simple one. It's a yes for level two. People can park and spend time in a town or community and engage in their free time at the beach or the mountains and be there for 4, 5, 6 hours and level two is going to be adequate for that. In the case where they only want to be there for an hour and a half at a restaurant and they need to have a full charge when they go, maybe the fast charger option is a good one in that scenario. So I think with that being said, I hope that answers the question. With regards to the fast and the level two.
Thank you, David. Erin, we have another question with regards to electric tractors and farming equipment. What are the electric tractors and other farm equipment expected to cost compared in competition to their diesel counterparts?
Yeah, the upfront cost is about 50% more currently, and that's for some base models. So when you start to add in the extra battery pack and the other implements and accessories, that cost can get a little bit higher. But that's just what's commercially available right now. In other conversations, I've kind of compared the electric tractor market to the electric vehicle market of 2011. So it's really early. There's only a couple models available. And I think as more models become available, the competition really drives the cost down. There's more demand. So right now, the upfront cost is quite high. I expect that to become lower. And through some of the policies that we are going to hopefully come address and identify, that can be lowered even further with maybe incentives or rebates and in other ways.
Thank you, Erin. And you mentioned policy, so I'm going to pose this to all of the panelists. When it comes to policy, what policies could we be working together on to make sure we're meeting the needs for electric transportation in rural areas? Rob, I see you thinking, so I'm not sure if you're ready to answer this one. So, David?
Thank you. Reading my mind.
David, do you want to start on this one?
I would like to see some activity with utility support programs to help the adoption of the electric vehicle is going to be an absolute necessity. There's a lot of challenges because this is a brand new shift in paradigm of transportation. So they're going to be taking what the oil companies have been doing for over 100 years and applying it to the grid. And there's going to be a necessary amount of grid upgrading that has to happen to expand, electrification into personal transportation and public transportation. So I see that as a very large, hurdle that has to be addressed, especially in rural communities, because there's sometimes just enough power, right? They don't want to build an excessive amount and overinvest in an area or a region, and they also don't want to have too little. So with adoption going up and the need to increase a utility grid in a rural region is going to it's going to have an economic impact on the growth of the EVs, and it's also going to have an economic impact on the utilities to do the work. So there needs to be help to on all fronts for not just the infrastructure, but also on the charging side, on this side of the meter, but also behind the meter where the utility company is doing a lot of that groundwork. And Rob's going to be able to put a lot more color on that. But I see that as one of the major hurdles that has to happen for rural, especially.
Rob?
Yeah, building out that type of infrastructure is not cheap, and we've got to have a business case to whether it's a current business case or something in the future, we've got to be able to, especially as a public power utility, we have to be able to support those business cases whenever we make those types of investments. I would say, like, what's worked really well in Oregon up to this point is our Oregon Clean Fuels program. I definitely want to give a shout out to it. It's worked well to kind of funnel funds towards these types of projects, and it could be a source of funding for other states that wanted to look at that type of model. It's really helped us make the case to, on top of all the other benefits of an electrifying transportation for all of our customers. It makes it really easy whenever you're like, oh yeah, and here's all this money that you can use too. I would definitely kind of encourage Oregon to keep up the good work there, and have states take a look at that model.
Erin, do you have any final notes?
Yeah, I would also agree that clean fuels is a great way to be able to fund these programs. Part of the tractor program is also funded through clean fuels via PAC Power. And if you're in a place where your state doesn't have it, but you can advocate for it, I think that is one great way to start doing that investigation work and fund some of these programs and demonstrations. Otherwise, we're not really quite there yet as far as recommending certain policies. We want to make sure that we're hearing the feedback from producers, from farmers, and sorry, my notifications are going off, and making sure that we are coming to policies together and not just suggesting something that will hasn't been proven.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you, panelists. We were having so much fun on this panel that I forgot where time went, and we're about time. Thank you all for joining us. We have one quick poll question for you all. Did you find this webinar informative before we go in through the outro of our webinar? We just want to say thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much, Erin, David, and Rob, for joining us today. We want to thank our sponsor, Idaho Power, for supporting the webinar. And we want to thank you all for taking the time on this Tuesday to spend with Forth. As we mentioned, we will be following up with a webinar recap that will include the webinar slide as well as the recording and extra the video that did not play. So we will make sure you get that and you can watch that. And if you have any additional questions, we want to continue the conversation. So you'll have that opportunity through the webinar recap email. We hope you're able to join us on Tuesday, April 27th for the next webinar in our series, which will be Electrifying Ports. So thank you. Again, I apologize. You can see the email address for our speakers today on your screen right here. So if you do have any questions, you can reach out directly to them or wait until the recap email where you can also follow up with them on. Thank you again so much for supporting us and joining us today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.